Hey, what's up? And welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Josh.
And my name is Sam.
What's going on, Sam? How's your day?
I was on the video. I was mocking Josh.
He tried to throw me off, but it does not work. I cannot get distracted.
Yeah. For our regular listeners, you have like a introductory cadence and some words that you say often.
I'm sure people can just quote it straight the way that I say it. But I noticed a lot of the podcasts that I like and listen to, they do a very similar. It's just the same thing, and that's the way it goes. So
hey, listen. There's a few YouTube channels that I like. Shout out to Federico Talks Watches. He's like customary wristwatch check. I mean, I could probably do the show for him
right
at this point.
That's nice.
That's my guilty pleasure. When I'm like vegging out on YouTube, I'm not watching church stuff. I'm watching watch videos.
I'm currently in Toyota 4Runner modifications videos, just endlessly watching these videos.
Yeah, you've gotten the overlanding bug, which I've had as well too. I've got a Jeep Gladiator that I absolutely love to get out there. So those are endless videos. There's some good stuff out there though. So okay, I have to ask you, and I will be brief because we want to talk about the top 5 reasons to get out of the church office. I have to be curious. Why did you choose a 4Runner over the new Land Cruiser, the new 250 Land Cruiser?
Well, the Land Cruisers aren't available yet to just mass purchase. I mean, you can't go down right now and get them, but there's about a $40,000 difference in what I bought and a new Land Cruiser, especially similarly equipped. So mainly that. I mean, I would easily drive a Land Cruiser. They're so beautiful. They're so cool. And in fact, that's really what Jackie wants really bad is one of those Land Cruisers. And so,
okay.
But yeah, I stuck to the 4Runner. I don't know. There was something old school about it that I really liked.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I've had a Land Cruiser. I flipped it because I made money on it, which was crazy.
Okay. You flipped it, sell.
Yeah.
I thought you rolled it over. I was like, man, that's really hard to do.
I have rolled over a Toyota Tacoma in the mountains in a blizzard. On a mountainside, rolled it back over and drove it home like 10 hours. That's a
Toyota tough.
It's a Toyota tough product. All right, well that's good. Yeah, I'm with you. The Land Cruisers are definitely overpriced. They're great vehicles.
Yeah,
I wouldn't spend the premium.
They need to calm down. Yeah,
but you know what is worth the premium? It's not even really a premium.
It's church teams.
It's actually value. Yeah. Church teams. The Toyota Tacoma of church management software. How about that, Boyd? If you're tuning in, the church team is tuning in. Yeah, the Toyota Tacoma of church management software. And if you're into vehicles, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They've got an indestructible system. It'll keep going and going, and it's got a price point just for you because it's a scalable model. And they've got all sorts of things, church management software, from texting to check-in to financials. So they are still giving away their offer 2 months just to get it, try it out, zero risk. So if you're in the market, which you probably should be, for some church management software, go to est.church. Again, est.church, and go get their free offer.
Yeah.
All right. Top 5 reasons to get out of the church office.
Yeah, we need to talk about this.
Do you get out a lot?
I do.
Do you?
I do. And every time I do, what I find myself in is, and this is why this is a topic for the show, you have to be intentional about this. I think some of these you just need to even sort of set a goal in your mind. I'm going to meet with, this many people on this many days, that sort of stuff. If you're not intentional about this, you will not do this. You will the office has a way of quicksand trapping you. And you look up and you don't feel as good. There's something about it, Sam. I don't know if you feel this way, but it's like if I go several days without working out or several days eating kind of junk food, I feel physically just blah. Well, we all understand that concept.
If I go a couple hours without a cigarette, I really feel it.
He does not smoke.
I don't. I don't smoke. My wife lets me smoke like one cigar every 2 years. So
Yeah,
there
yeah.
you go.
If I don't do these things that we're going to talk about here, there after a couple weeks, I start to feel just professionally blah. I feel spiritually blah, and I can get in the dumps and these kind of things, and I'll turn around and go, let me get back on these habits. And so that's what we're talking about here is some intentional things you need to do. Maybe not all 5 of these, but definitely a few of these a week to stay at your tip top pastoral performance.
I actually quantify my goals and I report them to my staff once a month. We have what are called we have a metrics meeting once a month, about 10 times a year actually, where we just go over, hey, we wanted to do these 10 things and were we able to accomplish them? And some of them are just regular things that we're always doing, like sharing my faith, connecting with other pastors, and getting out into the community. So I actually give a report on this to my own team. So if you are looking for ways to be accountable, this is a great way to do it. Set a goal, tell other people about it, and then tell them you will give them an update in a month.
Yeah.
That's how we do things at West Bradenton. But what's the first one? The first one is shut-ins. So this is something that I think the previous generations did better.
Yeah.
And not that millennials do it poorly, and it can be overdone where you're just always visiting people and you don't really get to anything else. That's a
right.
That's a chaplain. That's not a pastor.
Exactly.
But pastors should still get out there and visit people who struggle to stay connected to the church. And that tends to be widows, shut-ins, elderly people, people who are in assisted living facilities. So this is, I think, the number one. It's not; these aren't in order, but we're doing this first because I think this one's probably, except for maybe the last one, the most neglected.
I would agree with you. I think that hospital visits tend to never end. There's just, and the larger your church, the more that those pile up. However, those who are described as shut-in or homebound, there's a finite number of them. You know who they are, and you can even know in some cases the severity of the situation. And so that would obviously be somebody you need to go visit. I do get, this is controversial. I'm not sure how much pastoral benefit hospital visits are. I do think that there's something that we need to make sure are done, or that's a good thing to make sure are done. In our church, in every church I've pastored, that's the deacons. That's something I charge the deacons to do. They need to make sure that those are visited. However, I do see a lot of benefit with visiting those who are shut in. And honestly, it's a relatively new thing that I'm seeing and exploring in my life or in my pastorate. I can tell you this, I benefit as much, if not more, than they do, I think. And the way that I do them, there's a million ways to do them, but I just get a list from our office staff. You may already have a list of those who are in this situation in your church. I don't make a big deal out of it as far as like, hey, it's Thursday afternoon, it's time for me to go. I do, if I can, I schedule these and kind of get them out there. And then honestly, I just leave the office a couple hours early or maybe an hour early, swing by their house or their facility, and then just go in and sit down. And I say hi to them. I knock on the door. They love it. Sometimes I give them a call, say I'm going to come by. Sometimes I don't, just show up. They love to stop by. The first couple times, though, I will tell you that they are sort of shocked because I have literally no agenda. And they're just like, so what did you want to talk about? And I'm like, I don't really care. What do you want to talk about? Tell me about, and I'll point at like some stitching, some artwork or a photo and say, who's that in that photo? And they just start talking. And I ask them about like how long they've been a part of the church, those kind of things. I love those stories. It is funny how often people of that age will tell you something illegal that they've done in their past or something just off the wall. And it just really calms you in a way that helps you de-stress because, man, they've been through so much and they're just sitting there grinning. Like that's, and you're sitting there all worried about some finance team meeting and they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I lost my brother and this, so I don't know. It's very, very encouraging to me. Sam, how did those go for you? Or is it similar?
I think you are spot on. Pastors, most pastors, if you're a real pastor who actually does hospital visits, for those of you who never who think it's you're too good for that, shame on you. But most pastors do too many hospital visits and not enough like shut in, widow kind of visits. Particularly with the way hospitals are today, I do almost all phone calls now. Now, if someone's going to be in the hospital for a while, I absolutely will go visit them. A hip replacement? No, I'm not a routine hip replacement. I will call you. I will check in. I'll make sure you're fine. The church will care for you. I'm not going to go sit for that.
No.
But what I will do is go visit some shut-ins, and let me tell you, you are exactly right. The stories. If you're not doing this as a pastor, you are missing out on like, if you write books, you're missing out on chapter introductions because the stories.
Oh my gosh!
I remember this one time I was talking to this sweet old lady, and I have to remember exactly right because it's all kind of fuzzy in my head, but because it just kind of hit me, and I was like, well, tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about just where you came from. She goes, well, when I was a teenager or something, the early 20s, I forget the age, I moved out to San Francisco. And I kind of started in the whole Haight Ashbury scene. And I was just like, she's like, I think I've done every drug imaginable. And I'm like, okay.
They will tell you
okay.
That.
This is going to be a fun visit. I was talking with another, it tends to be more women only because unfortunately men pass sooner.
Yeah.
And your widow, it tends to be widows in the church, not widowers. But another lady was telling me about how she climbed all of the 14ers in Colorado, like all the 14,000 peaks. It's like she was a mountain climber and a snow skier. Now, to look at her, frail and fragile, and you just think that she's been quilting her whole life, and nothing against quilting, but no, she was flying airplanes and skiing down mountains and it was a mountain climber. It's just like, okay, you got to tell me about this. It's stuff like that you're missing out on when you don't go visit people. The baby boomers are getting older. They're not elderly just yet, but they're getting there. And you need to make sure that you're capturing these stories because there are so many great stories in the church. So many great stories.
Yeah, I love hearing those stories. We think of them as just these nice little church ladies, but in the 60s, they were young women and they did what young women do in the 60s. And then they tell you about it and it's really, really funny. I could go on, but most of it's illegal. Some of it's just, and it was illegal then too. And it's just funny. And they just don't care. They've lost their care and they'll just tell you whatever. I love those stories. I will tell you another thing that I try to do, because remember they're homebound. They will watch us on social media or on those kind of things. They are on social media. So what we've done is I'll often take a selfie with them and post it and say, church, this is Mr. Sam. He's homebound. He's been a member here for a long time. Just everybody tell Sam how great he is and how thankful you are for the church. And then you just get like dozens of hellos. Well, he sees that. She sees that. They interact. They feel like for a moment they're back in the church, and they're back a part of something that they've invested in. And so it's just a really cool way to use your platform to just really spotlight another person there and to bring them back into the fold. They feel so alone. I think it's
shout out to Carol Hopkins and her husband Joe, who I know follow me. They're bright people. They're probably listening to this, and she will often interact on Twitter with me. So shout out to Carol. By the way, her husband Joe, he is homebound, has recently written a novel that was published by a large New York publisher. He played music with Elvis. He had his NASCAR license, and he built planetariums. So And
Why
he's done
not?
a whole lot of other things too that I
Yeah.
just don't. I could actually start a Joe Hopkins podcast and probably spend a year just telling his story, let him tell
All the
his stories.
stories of Joe.
And one episode would last a year because he likes to talk. So
I love it.
when we get together, it's a long conversation because we both like to chat. But that's the point, is there are so many great stories in your church. You don't get to hear them unless you sit down and ask about them. You have to be intentional.
Right.
So number one, shut-ins. Number two, you got to meet with other pastors, and you're going to have to be proactive. You shouldn't expect other pastors to reach out to you. They're not going to. You have to be the one in the community that does that.
Yeah, pastors are the worst to meet with. They're all just so busy. They've got so much on their plate. And I always feel bad if I'm chasing after a pastor to kind of have coffee or lunch and he just for months and months and months can't. I just want to almost be like this silent guilt trip that the more times you tell me no is largely because you're just too busy, man. You just need to get some stuff off of your plate. I like to think of it in two terms. I'm always going, am I meeting with a pastor who is ahead of me? And am I meeting with a pastor who is not yet where I am? And I always want to do that. Now, I really don't like to come with an agenda. I don't want to sit down with this guy and go, okay, tell me the 5 ways that you preach through my next sermon series. I don't want that. Again, I just want to hear a story. Like, tell me how things are going on in your place. I met with 3 pastors over the last couple of weeks. They are all ahead of me. All of them shared a struggle that was going on in their churches. These churches, all 3 of them, are largely considered in our state, the state of Texas, to be some of the very best churches. And all 3 of these pastors are considered to be some of the very best pastors. All 3 of them shared a very similar struggle that they're going through in their church, which is a struggle, and I didn't tell them this, that I am currently going through. And I just felt so encouraged. I went home and I said, dude is dealing with the same thing, the exact same thing. And she was like, yeah, so what's that make you feel like? And I was like, not a loser. So there's that kind of thing. And then meeting with other guys, it's the same way. I just want younger guys or not yet fully experienced. I just want to be like, so tell me about it. Like, and sometimes they'll ask for my advice. Sometimes they don't. And I'm always quick to say, look, if you're asking for my advice, you're smarter than me. You're in that space, but here's what I would do. And I think those 2 things are so healthy. You've got to do that. We've got to stay connected.
Yeah, I enjoy connecting with pastors. I usually take them to the Tampa Bay Rays, watch the Rays at
that's your
Tropicana
go-to.
Field. Yeah. I'm a season ticket holder, which sounds really impressive until you realize it's the Tampa Bay Rays, and it's pretty easy to get season tickets.
Yeah.
In fact, my the representative who manages the season ticket holders, all 5 of us, called me up and said, hey, the seats behind you are open. Would you like them too? And it's just like, you guys are, I think it's going to start improving with the new ballpark, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Invite people into the things that you like to do.
Sure.
If you're the one who's proactive, you get to set the terms of like what you're going to do. Hey, I'm going to a ball game. Hey, I'm going fishing. Whatever it is, or a particular restaurant that you like, I'll meet you at, name your restaurant. If you're proactive about it, then you kind of set the terms. Now, granted, that usually ends up meaning you're the one that pays if you're not, splitting things up. But it is good to connect with other pastors. Great reason to get out of the church office. Thirdly, not just pastors, but the actual community, people in the community. I got up this morning and I went down to the city council meeting because
I saw that you wore fancy clothes. You looked nice.
I always do because it's on television.
I never do.
It's on television. Sometimes reporters are there and they'll take your picture and put it in the paper. So I have to be careful about that. I want to make sure I'm presentable, but I'll lead the invocation. Now, I'm not the only one that does it. They allow for any religious leader in the community to do it, but I end up doing it a lot. But I enjoy it. I got a chance to say hello to the mayor. I don't know that he knows me. Actually, he does. He's a newer mayor, and he does know me. Regardless, it's a chance to interact with people in the community. Yeah. There was one time I went down and did it, ended up talking to a police officer who was there, and he actually started sharing stuff that he was going on. Oh, you're a pastor. I need to talk. I was like, okay, well, let's go talk. That doesn't happen a lot, but I'm glad I went. That was, I never regret going. I've visited Kiwanis. I've been part of Rotary. These are civic organizations. You could probably pick one, join one, join your chamber of commerce, go to the meetings.
Mm.
These are all really good reasons for you as a pastor to get out of the church office.
Yeah, I've actually been the president of the chamber a couple times. I like these things. I used to not because, like let the dead bury the dead, and it just feels like a waste of time. It's really not my area, that sort of stuff. And I just started like redeeming the time, man. It's an easy way to just meet other people, and you don't know how those relationships are going to work out down the road. So I'm with you, Sam. I'll tell you the other thing about it is you're going to have to say no to some of these. Once you start going to a few of them, it gets out. You get invited to all of them, and so just be careful about that. Go to 2 a month, 1 or 2 a month. You'll be fine. But when you're there, I see pastors all the time, and they'll like huddle up. And there's like 4 pastors sitting at a table, and they're just talking. Man, do that in the previous thing we just talked about. Here, I want to meet the whoever's, and it's not just. I'm telling you, the person to hang out with, the mayor's great. But the person who runs that office up there, who does the scheduling for the city and stuff, that's who you need to be on a first name basis with. All right. So those are the kind of people, if you just get to know them, have a joking, fun relationship with them, you can get a lot more done when it comes time for you to plan that big old citywide whatever that you're trying to work on.
People like to deal with people that they trust. Mm-hmm. If they don't know you, they can't trust you. Yeah. So the only way you're going to become a person of trust in the community is to be in those circles. Very important. All right. Reason number 4, just recharging in prayer. I actually did that after I went and did the invocation at City Hall. I took about 20 minutes and just walked around downtown because it's actually a pretty pleasant morning here in Florida. And I just went and did some prayer walking. Didn't meet anybody. It's July at the time of this recording, so there wasn't a whole lot of people out. But it was just a brief 20 minutes, and I really enjoyed it. I'm like, I don't get down here and just walk the river because we have a river downtown. I don't do this enough.
Really pretty area right down there by the municipal buildings. I did the same thing today, but mine was more stress related. I started to feel my feelings. I started to feel stressed.
What's that like? I don't have feelings. How do you feel your feelings?
I have too many. Like the Inside Out movie where they've got the 4 or 5 people. Mine's like the Starship Enterprise. There's like hundreds of people running around in my brain and trying to kill things and aliens. I just started to feel that way, and I thought to myself, man, this isn't a healthy spot. I need to go for a ride. I need to go for a drive. It wasn't anything really with the church. The church is doing great. Staff's great. There's nothing there at all. I just thought, I just need to go for a drive. So I came up with a thing I needed to do. We have a store here called HTO, TEA, HTO, and they sell tea. It's kind of like a Starbucks, but it has tea, and it's a North Texas thing. And there's one about 20 minutes away. So I drove and got a cup of tea, and it's cold tea. So mine had coconut and lemonade in it. And then I got a gallon of a special tea, and I have a finance team meeting tonight. So I just got that to bring to them so we can have a little special tea tonight at our finance team meeting. So that's it was to recharge. I redeemed it. I love driving. I love being in my car. And so I did that. I listened to a sermon while I was driving, and it was helpful. Sometimes when it's too much, you are allowed to leave. You are a grown-up, and you're actually the boss. So you can go out if you need to go out. And too often, guys just sit there and stay in the pain. Don't do that. Go recharge a little bit.
Yeah, I'll do it from time to time. Thankfully, and I work out just about every day. So I have my recharge prayer time when I'm on the road running or swimming or whatever I'm doing that day. So there are ways to build that rhythm in, but sometimes you just need to step away from the office. You need to get away before you say something stupid and just, just go. It can be 20 minutes. It could be an hour. And that can be the best hour you spend in a month because You got away. You were too much in your own head. You got back to Jesus. And when you got back in the office, Holy Spirit was with you, because before Holy Spirit wasn't. So definitely think it's worthwhile. I mean, Jesus did this. He withdrew to pray to the mountains. He withdrew to pray to the wilderness. Obviously, you need to do it as well. All right, last one, and this is the most controversial one. Not because people will disagree, but because nobody does it. Evangelism.
Yeah. Go tell somebody about Jesus. Yeah.
You should get out of the office with the intentional effort of sharing your faith with somebody.
Yeah. I knew a guy that actually I want to say it was weekly, but that seems too much right now. Maybe it was a monthly time. The whole staff had a couple hours. They had to go. You're kicked out. Leave. It's time to go share the gospel. And they wanted to make so many evangelism points. I think that's a great idea. I think there are some of this kind of blends together. If you have I know pastors that join things like you were mentioning, like Kiwanis or whatever. And the point there is to be around lost people, to be around people who do not yet know the gospel, because if you sit in your office, assuming that all of the church staff are saved, which sometimes is a guess, and you go home and assuming everybody there in your home is a Christian, you're never ever around lost people. So there needs to be some intentionality to leaving the office in order to evangelize. And what I would say, Sam, is all of these, except for recharge, are not obviously filling your tank. These seem like things where you're pouring out. And maybe to some degree you are, but I would just encourage you not to see it that way. Just to see, like, I get, even myself, and I'm introverted. I'm
extroverted, so I'm looking at all of these going, no, these fill my tank.
Yeah. And I'm introverted, but sitting down with one sweet little church lady, that doesn't take anything out of me. I am enriched by that. The same thing with meeting with other pastors. Most pastors are introverted. And so when I sit down with other pastors that are introverted, I feel fine. We mellow each other out and fill one another. So I know that some people are listening to this going, guys, I'm already overwhelmed. I can't keep adding to my plate. And what I'm saying is, these are the things that will help you sustain the rest of your plate if you strategically include them into your regular rhythms. And if you've got too much on your plate to meet with other pastors, to visit shut-ins, to evangelize, then you're not doing ministry. You're not doing ministry. You're doing something else. Yeah. So take some stuff off your plate. Let other people know. And fortunately, by God's blessing, I don't think your church is going to have a problem with you spending some of your 40 hours a week on these things. So do it. That's a cool thing. That's a perk.
It is. And that's about all the time that we have for today. So thank you again, church teams, for sponsoring today's episode. Go get their free offer at est.church. And we've got another episode coming up next week. I'm really excited about it.
I am too. We're going to talk about church size. Sam, we can't get into it, but in your mind, without saying it, is there an ideal church size to pastor?
For me, yes. And I'll tell you on the next episode.
Me too. Thank you for listening so much this week, and we hope that you will catch us next week. We're going to talk about the ideal church size and why you might already be pastoring it. We'll talk to you later.